Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Stitch Sessions. As you can see, it's really snowing outside, and that's why it's perfect for this week's tutorial. I am wearing it. It is the crisscross cardigan jacket. And I call it a jacket as well because we use the Caron cotton cakes, which just gives it a little bit more sustenance in the feel of the fabric. So you could actually wear this as a spring jacket because it's just kind of got a little bit of extra thickness to it, even though it is a medium size 4 yarn on the lighter side. In any case, I have some photos of Frances modeling this jacket, which it actually fit on her very nicely. And you might remember Frances from one of our Stitch Session conversations a few months back. But I had this creation in my mind for quite a while, and I just like the idea of making something asymmetrical that would sit crossways, and it would look really cool if you unbutton it. And it just has that really neat kind of oversized collar look. And it's been kind of in the making for quite a while because, you know, when you design a pattern, you're trying to figure out how it's going to work, how you're going to put it together. And this is our very first cardigan pattern for you. Now, it may seem a little daunting, but stitch-wise, it's super easy. We're just using single crochets pretty much the whole time throughout the project. The only time we use a double crochet is when we approach around the collar here, and we're using a little bit of the front and back post double crochets. And we'll go through that with you in the tutorial. We'll also put a few extra links down below if you want a little refresher on some of just the basic techniques of front post and back post double crochet. I'm really excited to get started on this with you guys. It's a bit lengthy, so we're going to break this down into a few parts. Because it will take you a while. So we're going to start off with the back panel, the 2 front panels, and then we're going to take you through putting the sleeves and the finishing touches. Now, you'll notice that mine just sits just below my waist here, very similarly on Frances as well. You can absolutely make this much longer if you like, or you can make it even a little shorter if you want it to be like a little crop jacket. Totally up to you. And how I size this, because I know I'm going to get a lot of you asking me this, is I simply took a sweater that I wear all the time that fits me nicely, and I gauged my measurements based on that sweater. So it's really easy in a sense to customize it to any size, and I go through that in the tutorial with you. So yeah, I'm really excited. It is really warm, and actually I've already gotten several comments on this jacket because it's different. It's kind of interesting looking. So I can't wait for you guys to dig in, give this a go. Remember to pack your patience. This is a larger project, so it's going to take a little bit more time, but again, just single crochet stitches, and we use a little bit of ribbing effect. So we went into the back loops only of these stitches. Once you get going on your single crochets, back loops only, you are good to go. So let's just grab all of our materials and let's get stitching up our crisscross cardigan. Okay guys, I'm super excited to start this project, mostly because I am in love with this new yarn that I found. It's by Yarnspirations. It's the Caron cotton cakes. Now I've seen these at Michael's plenty of times before, but they've got a few new colorways there. And I was happy to see that they have some of the self-striping balls as well as some of the solid colors. And actually there were so many wonderful colors I couldn't choose from, but I settled on this one for our cozy crossover cardigan. And this ball has 250 grams in it with a total of 530 yards. It is 60% 60% cotton and 40% acrylic, which I love. The more cotton something has makes it a lot easier to throw in the wash. And as it says here, it's machine washable and dryable. And this color is simply called cream. So I'm very excited to get going on this. So I've got one ball of this, and you've got your scissors and darning needle as usual. And the hook I'm using for this project is a 5mm hook. You can use a slightly larger hook for more relaxed stitches. This does recommend the 5, so I'm going to go ahead and use the 5 for this. So what I did for my cardigan is I took the back of a sweater that I really like and that I wear quite a bit, and I took the measurement from the neck all the way to the bottom rim. And so we're going to start with the back panel of our cardigan first. So when I measured the back portion of the cardigan, it came out to 27 inches in length. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do a beginning chain that for me will equal 26 inches actually. So I'm going to shave off 1 inch. You can even shave off 2 inches. Because of course there's always going to be a little bit of give once we start creating the length, or the width, I should say, of our work. So what does that mean? It means we are going to work sideward, if that makes any sense. So if so let's say if this is the top part of my cardigan, where my head and neck sit, and this is the bottom where my just below my butt is, we are going to do a chain from the bottom of my neck all the way to the bottom edge. And then we are going to build the back panel from one side to the other. So for now, you're just going to make one big square, and you're going to do as many rows until you get the width that will go from one shoulder to the other. And we'll talk a bit more about that as we get further along in the project. So for now, we are just going to start with our chain row. So we will begin with a slip knot. And then I'm going to proceed to just do several chains, and I'm going to keep doing chains until I get my desired length. So for you, depending on your measurement, you will keep doing as many chains as you need until you get the length from the base of your neck to the bottom of where you would like your cardigan to sit. And as always, I make sure to reiterate that you want your chains to be not too relaxed, but you don't want them to be super tight. So you can see that there's a little bit of give there. So I just keep it nice and relaxed. So they're snug, but they're not tight, okay? Because you don't want it to be too difficult to work into those chains afterward. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Then I will take you into the next section. Okay, so I have chained a total of 100 chains. Now, I realized that the more I stitched, the more I realized there's actually going to be quite a bit of give. So my 100 chains for me, based on my gauge, gives me approximately 25 inches, and that's giving it some stretch. So because we're going to put a rim around the edges, I would rather just keep it at 25 inches. So I now have 100 chains in total, okay? Now, the beautiful thing about this project is the number is not too important, other than you should at least know what the number is so that when we make other pieces, it will match. But as far as the stitch, it's not really relevant to what we're going to do. But what we do want to do now is begin our first row. So we'll do one chain, and now we're into the second chain from the hook, which is right there. Remember, we never count the chain on the hook. We are going to do a single crochet. So we're simply going to insert, pull through, and pull through. And then we are going to do one single crochet into each stitch all the way back to the beginning. So because I have 100 stitches or 100 chains, I will end up with 100 stitches at the end. And that's all we're going to do for round one. Just make sure you insert, pull through, yarn over, and pull through. So your work is going to look something like this. And I'm just so in love with this yarn here and how it just sits nicely. Don't worry if it's stretching a bit much there. That is completely normal, especially when you are working into that first chain row. So go ahead and do that, and then we will see you back at the beginning. And here is my very last stitch, single crochet, and I am done row 1. So you will have something that looks like this in your first row. Okay, so this will be, well, you're going to go back and forth, but this technically is the front of your work. But because of what we're going to do, it's not going to really matter in subsequent rows. So, my darlings, the single crochet stitch is it for this pattern for the most part. So now that we've done our first row, we've come to the end, we will chain 1 and we'll turn our work. We are going to continue doing single crochets, but we are going to work into the back loops only, okay? So normally we'd work right into the full stitch there, and you can see the top 2 loops are there. But for this design, we are only going to work in the back loop, which is the loop furthest away from you. So this is the front, and that is the back. So because I've chained 1, I am always going to identify that first loop at the bottom there, which is right here. I will insert my hook, so that is not the chain 1. The chain 1 is right here. I will pull through and pull through like a regular single crochet, okay? And that is pretty much it until you've created your complete back panel. I continue to insert into the back loop. Okay, so again, this is the back loop furthest away from me. So I'm going in through basically the top part of the stitch and not the side. The top part of the stitch, and then I'm pushing through to the back loop. Okay, and this is going to be the basis of the look of the design for this particular cardigan. So I'm going to do a few here. Whoops. So that you'll be able to get the gist of the look that we're creating. So see if I take that out. So what that does by working into the back loops only is that it actually pushes the front loops a bit further forward to the front. And then what's going to happen is it's going to create this really cool rib-like effect, or this ridge. So right now you're not going to see one there, but once we get to the end and turn our work, then we work into the back loops, then these loops are going to be pushed forward. But it'll take about 2 or 3 rows before you really start seeing this effect. But this is pretty much it. So essentially what we're looking to do is our work is this way, and we are going to build the back panel from one side to the other. So a lot of times you'd work on a project and this might be the bottom working its way up, or it might actually be the top working its way down. In this particular project, we are going to work sideward, if that makes any sense. But what I love, love, love is that it's simply the single crochet stitch. If you are a beginner or a super beginner, you are still going to be able to create this really fun and easy design. So what I'm going to do is I will just check in with you after about 2 or 3 rows, just so you can start really seeing the development of the look and comparing to make sure that you're kind of in line with what we're doing, okay? So go ahead, and if you need to pause the video and just kind of look back to how we go into the back loop, feel free. I will also put a link in the description box down below of one of the videos we've done on how to identify different parts of your stitch if you just need a little bit more clarity on how to find that back loop. Okay,
So I'll see you guys shortly. Okay guys, so I've done about 3 rows here, and I just wanted to meet up with you just so you can see how the effect is starting to take shape with the ribbing. So now you can see a few rows. Hopefully you can see that. I know it's very light colored yarn, but hopefully you can see a few rows now how these front loops are being pushed forward. And see, once you start working a few rows, both sides will look the same. Okay, so that is our main goal. So go ahead and do your whole back panel, and then I'll meet up with you guys and we're going to talk about doing the 2 front panels. Remember, it's just single crochets, 1 into each stitch, into the back loops. Once you get to the end, you're always going to chain 1, turn your work, and you will work into the back loop of the very first stitch you see. So a lot of times we would skip 1 stitch at the top and go into the next one. But because of the nature of working into the back loops and that chain 1 tends to sometimes get tight there, we are going to work right away into the back loop of the very first stitch of each row. And that should help keep your stitch count even. So remember, it doesn't matter how many stitches as long as the stitch count remains the same. So in my case, I have 100 stitches, so I continue to have 100 stitches all the way across. Okay, so off you go, and I'll meet you for the front 2 panels. Hey guys, so I just wanted to show you kind of how I'm measuring out the sweater that I'm making, the cardigan. So this is one of my favorite, I guess, sweat tops that I really like to wear because of how it sits on me. So I know that this size is great. I think this is a medium. Oh, it's a large actually. So even better. I like the way it sits on me because it's not too form-fitting, but yet it kind of gives me a little bit of shape. So I'm using this as a template. So I'm just going to turn this over. So right now what we're doing is we are currently working on the back panel of the cardigan. So if I take the panel that I've got so far, sorry for the shaky camera, guys. I'm trying to do this one-handed. So there we go. So basically, I want this panel to be as wide as the back of this sweater. So I just have a few more rows to go, and I should be pretty good. Okay guys, so I just drew out a couple little patterns here. I'm not an artist in any shape, so please excuse the drawing, but I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit more of a visual as to where we're going with this cardigan. So I have finished the back panel, okay? So it looks something like this. And I just love how working in the back loops has created this gorgeous texture. Okay, so basically it's just one long rectangle. Okay, and that's what I'm going to show you right here. So this generally is the look of the sweater that we're going for. So the panel I just showed you is the back, and then the front is going to be consisting of 2 triangles that will crisscross in front of each other to give you this look. So I tried to do my best to show you that this is the front triangle, which we're going to pin with a button. So you'll have a little buttonhole here on the top, and so you'll have this drapey effect, and the other triangle will be pinned here. Now this is an opening for the neck here. Okay, so then you've got the 2 sleeves. So basically you have 5 pieces. So once we kind of separate all of our pieces. So we've got the back panel, which is the panel we just finished, okay? Then next what we're going to do is we're going to make these front two panels, which consist of two triangles. And then lastly, we'll make the sleeves, okay? And despite my poor drawing skills, the sleeves will not funnel out, but they'll flare out a bit as we get closer to the shoulder. So it is supposed to look a little bit wider along the top. So in total, we're going to have 5 pieces that we're going to make. Okay. So we are now going to move on to the very next piece, which is, so we've done our back panel. Now we're going to work on our 2 front panels. So it's, they're both going to be done the exact same way. And so that's what we're going to show you right now. So as you can see, I really did some damage with this cotton cake. So this is a 250 gram cake, and I have used almost all of it. I would say 85% of it for the back panel. So I have definitely gotten, I purchased a total of 3 balls. So I have 750 grams here I'm working with. I don't think I'm going to use the full 750, but you know, it's always better to be safe than sorry, because sometimes you buy a great ball of yarn and then you go back at a later time to get it, and sometimes the color's no longer there or they're out of stock. So if you're working on a project, make sure that you always get at least 3. Okay, now it's getting a bit wonky, so I want to be careful not to allow this to start tangling. And I believe, yep, this is still from my center. So I'm just going to set that aside there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a slip knot. And remember, for our back panel, we actually worked the rows up and down this way. Okay, so our cardigan is actually, the back is going to go this way, even though we've been working our stitches this way. The effect we want is for the ridges to go up and down. So we need the same length that we used in the back panel for the first length, the longest side of our triangle. So here, I'm just going to write this down. We used 100 chains to create this length. So that means in our triangle, we are going to start with 100 chains as well. So remember, this length, even though my beautiful drawing skills don't show it, is supposed to equal the length of the back panel. Okay, so both this side of that panel and this side, whoops, should equal the same length. So these should all have 100 chains. So that is what we are going to do. So once you have your slip knot, you are going to chain 100. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet you once you have your 100 chains. And remember what we always say, just be a little bit more relaxed when you're doing those first chains. If it helps you, if you're a tight crocheter, I would recommend, because this is a 5mm hook, I would recommend going up to a 5.5 for these first chains, okay? So I'll meet you when you've got your 100 chains. Okay, I have my 100 chains, and I just made sure that I had 100, and then I just like to kind of smooth it out a little bit just so it doesn't accidentally get twisted. So I want to make sure to remember that I'm always going to work into these V's here. Okay, so I don't want to be working into the back or get it twisted like that. Okay, so I've got my 100 chains, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain an additional chain, and then in the second chain from the hook, I'm going to do a single crochet. Okay, so that additional chain counts as your turning chain there. Okay, and for this first row, just like we did with the back panel, you're simply going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way across. But just before you get to your last stitch, I want you to meet me back here, and I'm going to show you what's going to happen. Okay, so for now you are going to single crochet. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet 98 stitches across. So actually I'd like you to leave the last 2 stitches of your chain empty. Okay, and I'll show you what's going to happen once you get there. Okay, so I have 2 stitches left here in my chain row, and my work looks something like this. So I've done 1 single crochet into every stitch. Now remember that we need to create a triangle shape. Okay, so if we've got 100 chains, that means in order to create this triangle, we have to decrease every time we come to the bottom. So eventually, as we increase our number of rows, the ends will stop here. So what we're going to do is we're going to decrease. That means we're going to bring 2 stitches together, which will now give us 98 stitches. And that's what we're going to do every time we come down to this end here. So what's going to happen with the last 2 stitches is that you will insert your hook into the next stitch as usual. You'll pull a loop through, but you are not going to resolve this stitch. You will then insert into the very next stitch, which is your last one, and pull through. You now will have 3 loops on your hook, okay? Then we're going to yarn over and we are going to pull through all 3. And now what's happened is it's cinched these 2 stitches closer together as 1 stitch. Now, of course, this is our first round here, so it actually, you're not even going to notice it yet. But if I do that, you can see my original chain is already starting to create a pointed shape. So for the next round, for the next row, you'll chain 1, you'll turn your work, and now we're going to proceed to work back the way we came into the back loops only. The exact same thing we did with our back panel, okay? But always remember, when you're going into the back loops, here's the chain 1. You never work into the first one. You work into the back loop of the very next one, okay? And then you're just going to single crochet 1 single crochet into the back loop of every single stitch back across, okay? Now, the end with the tail, which is a perfect marker, will always tell you that this is the side you're going to have to decrease on. So now, as we continue to single crochet back up along the side here, once we get to the end here, there is no decreasing on this end. You will go right to the end, chain 1, turn, and go back down the same way. It's once you get back down to this end again, remember, wherever your tail is, that's the side that you're going to decrease on. You will always leave the last 2 stitches open and then decrease those 2. Okay, and I'll meet you up to do that one again with you. But once you get that formula, you'll do that all the way up. So basically we're working this way. Okay, so we're working up, back, decrease here, up, down, decrease. So each time the number of stitches will decrease. And you're going to do that until we have the number of rows it takes us to get all the way across our back panel. And I believe I ended up doing 90 rows in total. Might be 92. I'm going to double check that. But however many rows we have here, we want to try and equal that. And we'll get to that once we finish that there. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and I will meet you at the end. Actually, I'll meet you at the end of this round, just so that we're on the same page, okay? Into the back loops of every single stitch, 1 single crochet. So I'm coming up to my last stitch here of this row into the back loop only, just doing a single crochet, and I made sure that I went into that chain 1. So this ends off evenly, just like a square piece of fabric would when we're working on it. And I'm just going to come back down here to where our tail is, and you can see that it's not squared off, it's on an angle, which is what we want. So this is where you're always going to have the decrease. On the non-tail side, you will always finish right to the end. Okay, I'm just going to do the next row again with you just to take you through it. So you will chain 1, then you will turn your work. Now, because we're doing single crochets into the back loops, just so I don't get confused, after I chain 1, I just keep it facing towards me, and I skip 1, 2, and into the next into the next single crochet. That's the back loop I go into, and I just pull through there. So that's how I've been doing it. Okay, so might be tricky to see, but so when you come around here, you have the stitch that you just worked, and then you've got that chain 1 right there. And that should help you maintain your stitch count, which, funny enough, in this case, our stitch count will always decrease by 1 because of the decreases. So because I decreased over here, we now should have 99 stitches. Okay, and so now we're going to work back down towards the decrease. So we will now go down to 98 stitches. Okay, so you're simply going to continue working single crochet into the back loops, single crochet. Remember to leave the last 2 stitches unworked, and I'm going to meet you back there, and we're going to just go over again the decrease. Okay, so just continue on 1 into each back loop, and we will meet again. We will have 97 stitches. So you will insert into the back loop of that stitch. And now, because this is a chain 1, it gets a bit tricky to see. So we still want to make sure that that loop still gets left in the front. So what I usually do in this very last one is I just come from behind here. So in this last one, remember it's a chain 1, so we're going to go right into there. Oops. Pull through. Now you have the 3 loops. Now you yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, so now you can see that it's really creating that nice slant we're looking for. Okay, so now we're having 97 stitches at the end. Sorry, now we have 98 stitches at the end. Okay, so we will then continue on. We chain 1. You're going to turn your work, and remember, we're going to skip 2 and into this next single crochet, the back loop there, we start single crocheting again into the back loops. So there you can see we've maintained the integrity of the slant there. Okay, and now we just continue on as usual. Single crochet into each back loop all the way back up. And remember, we're now headed towards the non-tail side. Okay, so if I come all the way back up here, see how this one has no decreases, so it will just end up being a straight edge along the way there. Okay, so we are now, we are working up and down and up and down. This is the tail side, so we keep decreasing. So it's going to come inward all the way. We are going to do this until we get the same width as the back panel, because we want these 2 triangles to overlap each other. So you need to know how many rows it takes you to go across your back panel. I know for me, when I worked my panel, I ended up having 90 rows. So I'm going to make sure that I keep working my triangle until I have 90 rows. So that will create this straight edge, which is going to be the top, which is going to be my collar. And then this portion here will be the bottom point of that triangle, okay? So I'm going to cut you loose. Go ahead and do that. You will need to make 2 of these triangle panels, and they will be the exact same size. So what I'm going to do is I'll briefly meet you once I've made the end of one, just to kind of touch base with you. Then you're going to have to go ahead and make 2, and then we'll be ready to start to move on to our sleeves. So as you can see in this photo, the 2 triangles didn't come out as planned because I would need a larger number of rows going across in order to make that 3rd point on the upper right hand corner. So what I have done is I've stopped my triangle where it is, and you'll notice where I have inserted my safety pin markers on the corners here. That's where I want to attach and leave the space for my sleeves and around the collar. So from the top right edge, I counted 28 rows inward and placed a safety pin there. Just like I did on the top left corner, I counted 28 rows inward and placed another safety pin there. So that's going to give me my neck opening. And then you'll see in the second photograph that I actually folded part of the front panel down, and that's actually the look that I'm going to create with this zigzag kind of design. So in fact, the second front panel is much narrower than the first front panel, and that's the one that's going to sit underneath the panel that you see that would be to your left, that almost completely covers the front. So the one that is sitting underneath on the right, I only did about 40 rows of that one. So I still did my decreases along the bottoms to create that that triangular shape going up, so that's still going to give it the crisscross look. And I'm still pretty happy with how it came out.